Hey guys, welcome to Bira Online, and I'm excited about tonight's guest. Today is the 2nd of July 2020, and we are hosting the voiceover legend that is Dave or David Wartnaby. I hope I pronounced his name right, and if I didn't, he's going to save us because I don't know if I bashed his name. But yeah, if you are into voiceovers or you'd like to pursue a career in voiceover talentry, is that the word to use? Gosh. Yeah, he is my guest tonight. And you've heard his voice on Classic 105 in Kenya. You've heard his voice on Capital FM in Uganda as well. So yeah, this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I assure you. So let's get him on here and see if we can start off this conversation. Uh, there you go. All right, we'll have him in just a minute. So guys, if you have questions for Dave, start typing them in the comment section down below, and he'll be able to respond to most of them.
That's
Hey
better.
Dave.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Joy?
I'm doing great. When we listen to your voice, it almost feels like we know you, like you live next door to us because of the radio stations that we listen to on the car radio or wherever it is. A lot of people in East Africa feel like they know you. Do you get that a lot? Like, do you walk somewhere and every time you say hi, everybody's like, is that Dave?
I am on the, how do I describe it in a slightly up my own backside way? I'm on the on the periphery of people's sort of perceptions. So I'm not famous in any way, but I'm out there in the ether. And so when I do start speaking, in London or in any area where I'm on a radio station, there is sometimes I think, did that eyebrow twitch? Did symbolize the fact that was that somebody thinking, I know that voice from somewhere, but I've no idea who he is. And if I do know who he is, why does he look that way? He could have been so much better. But it's it's a funny thing being on everywhere, but it's probably better this way, not being recognized. Yes.
Is it?
It's yes. I think that concludes my answer to that question.
Wow. So when you finally introduce yourself and say, "Hey, I'm Dave," do you get to introduce yourself and say, "I'm Dave"? It's my voice on the radio.
No, I did when I was a local radio presenter in 2000-ish, the year 2000. My ego might have resulted in me saying, "Hey, I'm Dave," and you might have heard me on the radio. But now everything I do in broadcasting is off the sort of high profile side of stuff. I'm a part of the mechanics of these radio stations. I'm part of the overall production sound. I'm something. Yeah, you may know me because you're in the industry, and people in the industry, and maybe the impact of the amount of years I have been on air in East Africa has passed me by. I mean, I've never known quite so many people to want to become my Instagram friend as have wanted to become my Instagram friend in the last 3 days. Let's put it that way.
Oh wow!
So maybe I'm more known, in Kenya and Uganda than I thought. Certainly in the media scene, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody has actually been DMing me. So is he the real guy or he's not the one? Or maybe it's just somebody who has a voice that is similar to his. I'm like, guys, he wouldn't really put up his bio on Instagram and say, "I'm Dave, I'm the voice talent, blah, blah, blah."
That's true.
But yeah,
that's the only bit of showing off I get to do now is on Instagram. So if I don't get free club entry, at least on my bio I can say, "Oh yeah, I do local radio voiceovers, man." And that ticks that little box in my neediness.
Right. So of course you've done voiceovers for Classic FM in Kenya and Capital FM in Uganda. Have you
Yeah.
spent time in both these countries, or and what's been your experience in either of the countries that you've visited?
Well, my experience in Kenya and Uganda, both experiences were completely different. One was as a
Mm-hmm.
holidaymaker on a teletext holiday to Mombasa, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Have you ever heard of teletext? Do you know teletext? Before the internet, there was teletext. Um,
No,
and this
no.
was a form of basic communication down your TV, and on your TV in very, very bad graphics, you could buy very, very good value holidays. And
Oh,
I
wow.
bought 8 days in Mombasa, including flights, and accommodation and food for £299. Um, and yes, so yeah, so that was my experience of Kenya. It was just a holiday, but
Oh, yeah?
Kampala was completely different. I did 2 months in Kampala, in the
Ooh,
city of
that's
Seven
60
Hills,
days. Yeah?
and it was it was it was quite was it one of the most, well, I don't know. Maybe I've led quite a sheltered existence, but I saw more of the world in that 2 weeks than I have done in a, I live in London, but I saw more of a variety of life in those 2 months rather than
Right.
I think I'd ever done in my life. I was working with a charity out there. You,
A charity. You were
you,
working with a charity. It wasn't even like a media house.
No, it wasn't a. Oh, well, no. No. This is media house and charity combined. This was the
Mm-hmm.
only child transitional home, and the idea was children who were born into some awful situations, who may have ended up in an orphanage. This was actually a transitional home to find the extended family, to return them to their family if they could not be with their parents. This was the only setup of that nature that had its
Yeah.
own full media department next door to the cot room, the nursery, next door to the playroom and the kitchen. They had like two full-on video cameras. They had a full-on editing suite. And this was because it was run by an amazing woman who used to work on Big Brother in the UK. And she wasn't so impressed with what she saw when she went to help out in a Ugandan orphanage, and thought, I think these children might be better off in their with extended family, or possibly maybe we can help with rehabilitation of the mums that have let them go for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
she set up this incredible charity out there, which was all about empowering local people to embrace children that might have found themselves in an orphanage. And it was the first time I thought, oh wow, this is incredible. Your story has won me over. I'm going to go and help out in any way I can. So
Yeah.
that is how I ended up at a capital in Uganda, because we were trying to make a radio or advertising campaign saying, hey, are you doing all right? Have you got a little bit of money? Maybe you can't have kids. Maybe you consider adopting in a country that doesn't really do adoption. Um, and yeah, she made incredible progress. And so I went out there to help her out with that. And yeah,
Yeah.
Lucy ended up changing the law in some
In
parts of
Uganda.
Uganda. And yeah, she ended up training loads and loads of local people in social care, and
Yeah.
in order to help as social workers, in order to help find these kids homes. And so the transitional home ended up closing because they didn't need to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They had achieved the goal of increasing the number of kids going to families, and that is now that charity's mission. It was fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah,
There we go.
I'm
That's
sure
the
it
end of that
was.
rant. But I
Oh
was there
wow.
for 6 weeks
No, but you
helping
did
out.
amazing work. You did amazing work. So
Well, I
kudos
didn't
to
do
you.
amazing work. She did amazing work. I just helped out with this radio campaign and helped out with any chores that were required. And then we went out into town and had great pizza and occasionally amazing steak.
So is that how Capital FM got in touch with you, or had you already done the voice for Capital
No, I'd
FM by
already
that
been
time?
working for them for a little while. There may have been some
Mm-hmm.
connection,
Mm.
and I can't remember how I got the gig, but it has been an enduring gig, and this is the reason there are so many people online line right now who probably know my voice, is because it has been an incredible job that's lasted a long old time.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and yes, they must have heard my work on Kiss in London and thought, and Heart in London, and thought, I don't know, that this voice will stand out on our station. But the only way
Mm-hmm.
any station imaging voice stands out is if they are produced right. And the reason I am successful in any of these radio stations is because the production, the producers, and I don't know, their incredible ability to listen to the same piece of audio about 50,000 times over and over again as they. Um, I say this in the loveliest way, almost autistically tighten up these
Oh
pieces of
wow.
audio into bits of audio art. It's their work that makes me sound funky. That's for sure. Yeah.
The voice does sound funky for sure, because else we wouldn't really be having the same voice doing the radio imaging all these years, in Uganda and in Kenya as well. So tell me something. Do you sometimes have moments where your voice is not feeling, or your voice is not at its best?
Mm.
And how do you deal with those moments?
Oh, well, this has happened on only a few occasions. There are more professional
Hmm.
voiceovers than me who each morning will sip tea, like without milk, who will drink hot water and lemon, and who will look after their voices. And I'm
Yeah.
waiting for the day where I realise that not doing that on a daily basis totally screws me over. But there was one job where I was in denial about how my voice had aged. And I thought, yes, I can be the voice of the Paw Patrol National Kids TV campaign. These guys, I don't know, have you heard of Paw Patrol?
I've read about it, but I don't know
Paw
really much
Patrol
about it.
will be there on the double. There's like a kiddies animation, and they were doing a national tour of the UK, and I had to do the voiceover campaign for the whole country, including all of the arenas that this Disney on Ice style experience was playing at, and it was 4 hours of speaking in the highest register with the most enthusiasm possible, pretending that squeezing out the last semblance of my teenage life in my 43-year-old body, in my 43-year-old larynx, and I damaged
Yeah,
my voice. And we have the NHS over here, and I've only ever used the
yeah.
NHS. This was the first time that I visited a private hospital because I thought, oh, maybe I can claim this back against tax. That wasn't the case. You could not do this. But I was so worried about what I'd done because I couldn't speak for weeks after that one job.
Weeks.
Yeah, for weeks,
Oh
my
wow.
voice would crack if it hit a certain threshold
Yeah.
of energy and high register, and this meant my station imaging work went right out the window because a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
VO work is super high register stuff. It's like kind of there, turn up the feel good. It's bright and it's right up here, and it's not the preferred way that. It's not the preferred way that you're meant to speak as an actor, or
Yeah.
it's not. If you're on stage, you should be speaking from your diaphragm and communicating with the room. But here, when you're making radio imaging, it's a strange old beast. Or maybe I've created this monster myself, but I definitely speak with the wrong part of my throat, and that was not possible for 3 weeks after that job. My eye
Oh
looks
wow.
really
So
lazy.
how did you fix that? Like, did they give you meds for you to
Um,
get better, to get your voice back? And then when you
it was
finally
quite
got your
disappointing.
voice back?
I
What was it like?
it was disappointing because I have successfully not taken antibiotics. I don't think I'd ever taken them in my whole life. And it felt like a real
Uh-huh.
failure that I actually had to take antibiotics for the first time. And I did religiously for 3 weeks, and it did clear up. I can tell you that they do work. Um,
Antibiotics could help clear my vocals.
there was some damage. I'd done physical damage to the back of my
Oh,
throat.
physical
They
damage
put
to
a
the
camera in
vocals.
there. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
He tried to
wow.
put. Yeah, they had a camera from the 1980s, which was on a rod that was about that thick,
Yeah.
and put that in my
And so they
throat,
had
and
to put.
that caused me to gag. I could not do this. So I now know there's one profession that I definitely would not be very good at, and I'll
And
keep
that's
that to
being a
myself.
medic.
Yeah. And then they stick another camera, which didn't have quite such a high resolution, but it didn't matter because the damage was so blatant, up my nose and then back down. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, and here's how it worked. They charged me to turn up.
Mm-hmm.
They charged me to use the equipment, and then I
Mm-hmm.
got another bill for use
Uh-huh.
for use of the building that the private medicine, the private doctor was in. I mean,
Okay, Dave.
literally,
I
it's
think you
ridiculous.
don't go to hospital at all
No,
because these are just the bills that any patient would pay.
yeah, it's crazy. So yes, long live the NHS. Yeah, yeah, we're very lucky to have it. Is there any form of healthcare like that? Are you in Uganda
Um,
or Kenya? You're in Kenya, aren't
I'm
you?
actually in Kenya. I'm Ugandan, but I'm
Yeah,
based in Kenya.
yeah,
Yeah, so we have something called NHIF, uh, National Health Insurance Fund,
yeah.
where a lot of people also have to subscribe to it. It's a government program, but it does help a lot of lives, or
Okay,
it
so
does help
there is some
save a lot of
backup.
lives. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
But
yeah.
it could be better. I guess maybe not as good as the NHS in the UK, but it will get there with time.
No, well, yes, it's not bad. I think we shout about it quite a lot. It's struggling at the moment, that's for sure. Any health service is
Hmm.
only as good as the amount of money that's pumped into it, and at the moment, it's struggling with coronavirus and a Tory government. There we go.
Oh,
That's my
okay.
punishment for
What
getting
just
political.
happened?
I dropped my phone. Um, so
Oh, wow. All
yeah,
right.
I'm very good at
That,
talking and certainly
that's
missing.
interesting.
Yeah, and,
Oh,
and
no, no,
disappearing
no.
on a tangent. So apologies if I'm
It's
not answering your questions properly.
no, it's a fantastic conversation. I'm just loving the experiences that you have.
Oh yes,
So
yeah.
so
Oh no, I was just going to say, Uganda, of course, was phenomenal. It was incredible.
so did you
It was.
prefer the day life or the nightlife in Kampala?
Oh, where do we go in Kampala?
Mm.
It had a funny name, and there were lots and lots of steps. Bob, it wasn't called
Bubbles.
Bubbles. Bubbles O'Reilly's.
Yeah, I remember Bubbles on Acacia Avenue, right?
Yeah, I don't quite remember the place, but I do, or the specific address. But I remember it was steps down. You would slowly step down towards a stage. Took advantage of this every
Yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was Bubbles. So anyway, let's now get to the talent. The talent.
Yes.
Did you always want to become like a voiceover talent? What was the journey to discovering who you are today?
Big question. I wonder if I can answer it in a short
Try.
fashion. I'm going to give it my best shot. So I wanted, I wanted to be I think I wanted to be a local radio presenter or journalist or something. When I was 16 or
Mm-hmm.
17, there was this satirist called Chris Morris who made great observations about how media works. And he deconstructed radio programming in his own show. It was very difficult to employ him for longer than 2 or 3 months because he was just an absolute legend, really. His
Yeah.
style of broadcasting was something that I found very, very funny and I wanted to emulate, but there were a few problems. I wasn't as intelligent as him. I didn't go to university. I didn't have the journalistic nous. So I tried to be a poor man's Chris Morris on air. And this manifested itself, instead of being a commercially friendly DJ, i.e. shut up and play the hits, because that's what they want you to do. In commercial radio, you know, if you're working for the BBC and you're making long form, sophisticated documentary or news-based programming, then you'll be taking a different career path. But I just kind of wanted to make some funny noises on air, talk some nonsense that I thought might be Chris Morris-esque, and then play some songs in between. But unfortunately, I wasn't as funny as him by a long shot. In fact, my efforts to be like him in a commercial environment were quite a painful listen. And so I couldn't really hold down presenting jobs. But there was, in order to supplement being a presenter at the first radio station I worked at, I decided there was a job going to make commercials. Commercials. And I worked for a little radio station that was affiliated to a big radio station, and the big radio station made all the adverts for £200 a pop. In a very cute way, my boss at the little radio station said, "Our advertisers can't afford £200 for an advert. Can you make them for 20 quid?" And so we undercut our own in-house commercial production department to the tune of whatever percentage that is, and I would charge £10 to voice it and £10 to make it, and this was in 1995. So I was making these really basic radio commercials and managed to bump up my income by about triple, because at this radio station that I was working at when I first started my career, as soon as I left school, I was earning a quarter of what might be the minimum wage. This was in 1995, and it was £5 an hour, and my show only lasted 3 hours, so that's £15. £15. This needed bumping up, so I made these commercials, and I managed to earn an extra 900 quid out of it. So I built this new skill, and because I was voicing them at the same time in a very, very bad voice. I mean, the voice was a pastiche of what I thought a radio commercial should sound like. So it was like, "Come down to the local car showroom where we've got loads of cars to sell you this weekend." And it was just like, this is awful. But so I did that for a few years, and eventually I got a job at KISS. But this was making the branding. I'd managed to persuade them that through my commercial production, I could chop up this branding. And because I started making the audio branding on reel-to-reel machines. But I just moved into using a computer called Triple Dat, the cutest name or editing software. It was like from a German firm, and managed to make some of this radio imaging. And there was a guy there called Andy Roberts at KISS, and he basically tightened up my audio editing skills. And they had a voice on air at the time. So this is 1999 now. I had a voice on air at the time. They wanted to rebrand the station, but they wanted to do it on the cheap. "Oh, you can do some presenting. Why don't you do some presenting on the weekend? Because you'd really like to do that in London, wouldn't you?" And my 21-year-old self went, "Yeah, I'd love to be a presenter in London," with my stupid Chris Morris act. And but what we'd also like you to do is make the branding for the radio station. Don't make commercials. Just make the branding, the promos, the sponsorship stuff, and let's see what your voice is like. And so I did some talking into the microphone, and he went, "No, sound more disinterested." So this is how it went. This is the very beginning of my voiceover career. He said, like, this is the thing that clicked. I went, what was the tagline? "We are dance, KISS 100, I said. And he said, "No, sound more disinterested." I said, "Oh, we are dance, KISS 100. He said, no, more disinterested.
Disinterested. Oh, wow.
We will make this work in the post-production, okay?" And so it turned into holding a note. And this was very fashionable at the time. And this is what he needed to get the Americans off the air in the UK. Because if you're still with me, you're still with me for this, right? Okay. So what we had in the UK at the time
Oh,
was
wow.
lots of Americans saying, "This is Kiss 100," or "This is
Mm-hmm.
Capital FM." And they
Mm-hmm.
would be the identification of the station, and they would sit and set themselves nicely apart from the presenters. And they would also make the station sound big and very 1990s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this guy and production generally in radio had worked out ways of making Brits sound cool. And the only way they could do it and make them stand out from the presenters was by getting them to sound very, very disinterested
Disinterested.
and then squashing the living
Amazing.
crap out of them. And so they take all of the bass off.
Uh-huh.
So the exact opposite of Red Pepper, who
Yeah.
the legend that you interviewed last week, because he's just naturally got the
Yeah.
grab. But what
He's
about
got
us?
the deep voice, yeah?
I
So
mean,
they
his
had to
voice is so
squash
low.
yours.
He can hardly he can hardly hear what he's saying. There's not an iPhone that has his voice is incredible. But how can we make these high register guys that speak through their nose sound a little bit more interesting? And so, sound monotone, and then take all of the bass off, turn the top up, and then compress it with audio compression. And then you stick it on top of one of these dance tracks, stick it on a bit of Nailin and Kane and Beach Ball, or on Sweet Bad Chocolate Boy. Sounds a freaking nuts.
Oh, wow.
So, and so that was great. And so that was it. I started doing this for it. And then the other stations that were associated with Kiss around the country went, "Oh, what's this guy? We'll have some of him." And this was the best news for Kiss, because even though they'd lost the exclusivity of my voice, because I had spread around the fellow stations in the country, because there was a little bit of competition between those stations, it meant he could guilt-free say, "Get the hell off air. We do not need you on air as a DJ any longer. You seem to be doing all right as a voiceover artist. You're clearly stronger at this." And I had an income coming in, and I didn't, and it wasn't too much of an ego hit to be rejected from the live on-air presentation. So we get to 2002, I'm off air, and I'm doing your jingles.
Oh, wow, that's a fantastic journey. I must say, I guess we should thank the gentleman who discovered you. Who do we thank? Andy Roberts?
Oh, Andy Roberts. Yeah, we got to thank Andy Roberts. I mean, yeah, he was there for a long old time. Yeah. He was, thanks,
wow.
Andy. I mean, there were other people involved, but he was the guy that refined it and then made it work. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Andy Roberts, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be hearing the voice that we're hearing lately on so many radio and TV stations and documentaries and so much more. I think trailers as well. Yeah, I watched the Tomb Raider as well that you did voice. But before we can even get into the depth of all that, what does it really mean to be a voiceover talent? Because putting it into perspective, I know we hosted the legendary Red Pepper, but in your own words, what does it take to be a voiceover talent, really?
Well, these days it takes authenticity, because the journey I was describing back then was when it was about sounding super dynamic. And there's still a place for that in between high register pop songs. But there's so much more to being a voiceover than just doing that branding. And versatility and availability usually helps, and authenticity. The authenticity has been quite difficult for me to deliver, because I spent so much time in commercial radio delivering in that way. As you can hear, there's quite a broadcastery boominess.
There is a big word.
That's not necessarily what documentary producers and not necessarily what advertisers want. They want somebody that sounds like a normal human being member of the public. So there's a place for the imaging and branding on Capital and Classic and the pop music stations, where it's a slightly different art form. But if you want to be a voiceover, a voiceover needs authenticity these days, and there is some skill involved. But a lot of it is just a refined version of being yourself. I mean, influencers have kind of democratized the art of being a voiceover, because you've now got a much wider variety of individuals. Instead of just being tied to those that are in broadcasting or acting, you have a wider variety of individuals who have access to pretty decent equipment, or at least a way of communicating to that equipment. And so you now have a much wider variety of voices to choose from. And all you need is, there are some skills, but that just kind of comes with time and comes with accepting the direction you're given by anybody. And if you accept that direction from anybody, which is usually, can you sound a bit more natural, please? Especially in my case. Then you'll be all right. But authenticity, but these days, availability. People want to turn stuff around quick. And to have, I mean, once again, coronavirus has sped up this change. You know,
absolutely,
you know, everyone's got a microphone in their house now. That's not bad. That everyone who's got a microphone in their house now needs to think.
And everybody's like a broadcasting media house of sorts.
Yeah, they are. Well, this is it. The thing, when I first went to Uganda to that baby's home, it was quite crazy that they had all of this equipment. Because they wanted to make videos about their achievements and put them on YouTube. And this really worked for them, because she had experience, the girl who started it had experience, Lucy Buck, the legend, had experience in that field. These days, well, everyone's has a degree of channel or communication. I mean, look at you, you're perfectly framed in this thing, but you have come from a broadcasting world yourself, haven't you?
Yes, I have, yeah. So you talk about versatility, and your kind of craft, of course, does require that one is versatile. Today you're doing radio imaging for Classic FM. Tomorrow you're doing voicing for CNN International. How are you able to deliver satisfactorily on all when they each require that you give them a different voice?
It's funny, you do, a mode kicks in over time. When I first started voicing for CNN, it was one of my first regular TV voice jobs, but it was for America. This is a bit crazy. But all I'd voiced beforehand was radio imaging. And I thought CNN would want that KISS kind of sound, but they actually wanted something quite different. And it did take quite a few, it probably took a good few months for me to hit the CNN sweet spot, which became that signature sound, which is quite different. But they require an upness and a brightness that can compete with the high energy promos that American voiceovers often deliver for their TV promos. In the UK, it's a much subtler art form. Often these days, there isn't even a voiceover on a promo. It can be done classily with graphics, or it can be done with the actual talent that appear in a program. You are a voiceover appearing on the end. You don't want to look to dominate. You want to complement whatever is being promoted. This is certainly the case in documentary narration, where you really need to sit back. But in America, they have a slightly different attitude, and you are competing with a much more high energy, or you are sitting in a much more high energy product. And so for some reason, my voice worked out where others might not have done. That maybe that mix of radio imaging, maybe it's the register, I'm not sure, but it was something that the American producers felt comfortable with to share their American story internationally. Amazing. It was a really amazing.
So tell me, how do you describe, say, CNN? And then you've also done voiceovers as well for the Oscars. I watched the Oscars where Ellen DeGeneres was host of the Oscars. And I'm I know that voice. So you really have to put yourself in the mood.
Yeah, you do.
For the audience.
You've definitely got to talk to picture. You've definitely got to talk to the activity that is happening behind you. if you build a relationship with a certain broadcaster or product where you really do, as a voiceover artist, get to know that product, you can get away with it. And there are some local radio adverts where everyone is just trying to churn this stuff out, where it doesn't really matter so much. But when you're making some promos and a lot of commercial content, documentary narration, and adverts that are more thoughtfully put together, you really do need to do your voiceover on top of what you can see and hear, because it can, as much as you can be given a brief that says deliver this softly, or deliver this with passion, or deliver this with energy, there's a very slim chance you'll match what, or you'll sit nicely on whatever is being recorded. So I would say to any voiceover out there, a production company, a producer or a broadcaster can only respect you more for saying, please, can you send me a copy of what you're expecting me to sit on if you want me to self-direct. If you can't send this down the line to me, please send me a copy, because it'll work out much better for everybody. We'll do the job quicker. We'll probably save you money because I'll hear, and you will sound much more in tune with what you're doing, because so many jobs.
So tell me, when say you're given a script and they're African names, do you have to request that the names or these names are pronounced by somebody from Kenya and then sent to you so you can see if you can do them again? Or how does it go? Because you seem to pronounce them quite very smoothly or eloquently. Maina and Kingangi, or, you know, how are you able? Yeah.
Now, now there's a, this is something that I think I've worked out. If it is, they have chosen me as somebody who has a fairly neutral British accent. I don't. It's a southeast British accent, but it has a sort of power and energy about it that maybe makes it a bit more forgiving in other territories. But you can't pronounce local names, local surname. You can't do this in the UK either. You have to adopt a degree of the local accent, even if you can't. I'm saying you. Other people may have a different opinion, but I believe this is right, because there should be a real nod to how a product or a brand or a name is delivered locally. And if I can just about pull off jumping from my own accent into the Swahili or the local accent for names and brands, I think it's better than me saying Minor and Kingangi. I mean, that would be there has to be a bit more of a lilt. I think to read the whole script like that could be cultural appropriation, but I think you definitely have to drop into the local accent for names. Yeah, and hopefully I get away with it. But I know the presenters on Breakfast often take the mickey out of the Muzungu for mispronouncing them.
They don't actually. For those who have listened to The Voice, we're always like, "Ooh, he did a good job. He tried."
He tried his best. That's it. It's a really, it's a knowing, it's a knowing ticking off. But and I thoroughly deserve it. I mean, yes, they often send through an MP3, but I think I've after 10 years, I've got it now. I think I can.
You've got it now.
So
you know the difference between a Ugandan accent, Kenyan accent, West African accent, and all that.
No, absolutely not. But I think I can certainly break it out of over Britishness and give it a little bit more of a Kenyan Ugandan flavour. But it is only a flavour. It's definitely not down to local. But they're based on MP3s that people have sent me in the past, and so hopefully I but of course this is the classic voiceover thing. There was a thing called vocal slip, where
tell me about that.
Where over time, and you can do this in the course of one documentary. you can believe that you're pronouncing something right at the beginning, and over time it just slowly degrades. And there need to be fairly. You have to keep on pressing a reminder of exactly how something is pronounced if you don't pronounce it regularly. Yeah.
So Sarah is saying, Sarah Mwangi is saying he did well, or you did well on Minor and Kingangi. That's the one
Thanks,
in
Sarah.
Kenya. Yeah, and DJ Kroba, who is a big DJ in Kenya, is saying the legend is here. All right. So I read somewhere, Dave, that the most difficult part of a voiceover talent's job is to bring life to a text with your voice. Tell us a bit about voice technique, bringing life
to a text. Well, I mean,
to a text. Yeah.
Let's a couple of caveats here. I'm not an actor. I'm a local radio presenter who got away with it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't look after my voice properly. But you have to care about what you're talking about. I quite like a cup of coffee. And when a guy sent me an advert for a local roastery, I came alive. That's a very basic example, but it does. You've got to sound like you care about what you're talking about. A bit of research, and for instance, when you're voicing a documentary, it's really important not to skip just to the. This is often done to save a bit of time. Just to skip to the bits where you're voicing, you really should watch the whole thing in context for a couple of reasons. For the subtlety and knowingness of your delivery, so you really get to know the characters and the jeopardy involved in the storytelling. But also to make sure that your tone references very recent events that may have occurred in the storytelling. Sentences can change from the tiniest pronunciation or the tiniest push or inflection. So it can be quite tempting to go, oh, I'm just going to read up. I'm just going to knock these out and sound fairly generic.
Sound disinterested.
Yeah, go for the disinterested thing. But then when it plays out and you see it on TV 5 months later, you go, I don't sound like I even know what I'm talking about. So you've really got to give a shit about what you're saying.
I get that. So how best can voiceover talents promote their work besides demos? Because we see that demos are used a lot, but then there could be other ways in which they promote their work. How would you advise them to go about it?
Well, if you're trying to promote the authenticity of you as an individual, appearing, being successful on Instagram is a good way of people seeing, well, that person sounds like somebody that would represent my brand or could voice my documentary quite well. It would take quite a coincidence for that to work, but you could argue that if somebody can replicate the normal energy of their speech in front of a microphone, which is a little bit difficult because sometimes people go into microphone mode, then that could be a good way of finding some, but I would definitely stick to what you're good at. There's so many voices out there that somebody can choose. So just do exactly what you're good at. Don't do a whole load of accents from different parts of your country, because they will find somebody from that part of the country that can deliver with that local flair and character. So don't waste time or energy, and most importantly, the potential for somebody to, because they're only listening for the first 10 seconds. So you've got to deliver your signature. If you're making a demo, you've got to make sure what you're strongest at, and that is most authentic, is at the very top of your demo. It's got to be there within the first 10 seconds, because people are just going, no. So you've got to shine in those first 10 seconds, and don't cloud it with music and activity. That is for the imagination of the producer in post. They want to hear your voice as it is, and not have it clouded by the energy or compromised by the energy of any production you might put underneath it. So I would definitely put you at your most natural, at your most confident, at the very top of your demo. And then any variations, start to, as you work down the next 2 minutes, and that demo doesn't need to be longer than 2 minutes. 90 seconds is probably good enough.
90 seconds, great.
Yeah.
So you did mention just a few moments ago that you haven't done a good job taking care of your voice. Why?
Why? Because I haven't really grown up, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe I'm in denial that this is still my job every day. It's led to some degree of I can be a bit haphazard in my approach to work.
Are you still in the phase of when I grow up, I want to be this?
Yeah, there's still a bit of that going on. It can make me a little bit clumsy in the way I operate in some working environments. And this is a shout out to Katie at Channel 5 because I'm quite disorganized, and there's just a slightly frustrating, immature part of me that just doesn't refine the the grown-up side of being. I'm in denial, I think, about just turning 44. Don't tell anyone. A classic, I'm 44.
But you know what? Come to think of it, I think we all have that side of us. We all have that side where we're always thinking, I think when I grow up, I want to be this. But then, sometimes we just got to admit either it's too late, or maybe the window for us to do what we keep thinking we would want to do might be just as short.
I know exactly what this is. This is local radio presenter disease. I might have not been a local radio presenter for 15 years. But I don't know if you've been into your local radio station. There's a certain youthful denial about many presenters, and it just never leaves them. They just need to grow. They just need to have kids and grow up. And and maybe that's the last lingering element of local radio-dom within me.
So do you take, there's some people who say they take acting classes, and others say they prefer to imitate certain voices that works the magic for their voice training. But do you really need to take acting classes for you to get your voice right, to get your tonations right?
I think it could help. There are voiceover jobs that require acting. Mm-hmm. What journey are you taking? Usually voiceover. This is where I'm not truly representative, because there's the job in voiceovers. But how did we get here? We might have been a presenter. We might have been an actor. Usually people are famous and do a bit of voiceovering on the side as a presenter or as an actor. And if you're already an actor, you've got that skill, and it's just up to you to stop sitting around at home waiting for your next acting job to come in, get the bloody microphone in your house, concede defeat, and start doing a few voiceovers. If they're available. But I've gone off on a tangent. Ask me that question again. I'll give you another refined answer.
No. I think you already got the answer.
Okay,
we already got the answer for it. So yeah, though you brought it out in a comic way. So let's talk about podcasts. You're doing podcasts too, yeah? Is it Battersea or is it Baasi? Because Baasi.
If you're a Cockney, it's Battersea, and I'm trying to push the T's. Sometimes I drop the T's, but I'm actually in the Battersea podcast environment now. So
nice.
There we go. Look, I made that. See, this is it. I made that logo on a little app on my iPhone and got it printed.
Really? What app is that?
I can't remember what the app was called. Oh, it was on. It's called. I'll tell you afterwards. I'll make a fact sheet. Give me everyone's address.
Okay.
And I'll post it to them.
Okay.
So I the reason for this is in my loft in the house, because the voiceovers.
That's so cool. Yeah.
The voiceovers have gone quite well, but they don't involve any social interaction, not a huge amount anyway. I relish going to Channel 5 because it's the only job I do where I go into someone else's working environment and meet people. The majority of jobs just happen in this booth up here. And oh, you can see that because the position of my hand. And so I thought, well, I've got some audio production skills that I haven't been using for years. All I've been doing is just sending people audio and chopping it up basically in Adobe Audition. Maybe it'll be seeing as everyone's making a podcast these days, maybe I'll try and make up a business. And so literally in bed, I thought, I'm going to call this thing Battersea Podcasts, and I'm going to invite strangers into my house. And those people that, because you've got three types of podcasters. You've got those that are making them in their own homes. You've got corporate people making them for a very large amount of money in Soho studios in central London, being totally ripped off. And then I thought, well, I've got some old kit in my house. Maybe I can, it was a bit of a midlife crisis thing, really. Maybe I can build the dream studio in my own house. You know, that the radio studio that I would have wanted to build when I was a kid in my bedroom. And so I thought, I'll give this a go. And yeah, so I produced a podcast over the course of the last year called the Mission Baby Podcast.
I've seen that,
These two fab girls came in. One, Danny, trying to get pregnant, struggling, but willing to try anything to make it happen. And maybe it was just coming into my environment every day. Maybe I was giving off some kind of positive aura, but she eventually got pregnant, and she's just had a baby in the last 2 days.
So what's her name?
Danny, Danie.
Oh, Danny. Nice. So you're saying it came off of you? The energy came off of you?
Yeah. I was being sarcastic. But she so they came in, and that was fabulous because I got to hang out with two great people. They told their story and made their podcast. I made it like shiny using my old radio imaging skills. I got to hang out with people for a few hours, which was really, really nice. And the most fun bit about those podcasts was making the top and the bottom, because I got to make branding for it. And so that scratched the old branding itch. So, but of course, coronavirus means I can't invite anyone into my house at the moment. So that is why it's all dormant, and I'm getting it all mucked around with. So it's even more versatile for when the lockdown lifts. And so people who come in can bring their video cameras in, and they can hook up. They can hook up to the microphones and yeah, who knows? I don't think I'm going to make any money out of it.
You should probably post-COVID, maybe as the social distancing thing phases out. Yeah, it's possibly going to be a good venture. And just before we go into the next question, which is also about podcasts, Cynthia here is saying she got the joke. By the way, she's saying Voiceover Plus, babies.
Voiceover Plus.
All right.
It's incredible. I mean, she was willing to try absolutely everything, including having Chinese medicine, having short pieces of wood smacked onto her forearm. She would.
Why are you making this sound so funny? It's something
because I can't make anything sound serious because I've been working in broadcasting too long. That's right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are the ABCs of getting it right with podcasts? What do you need to do to make it sound so funky, but at the same time, very professional?
Okay. So first thing at the moment, especially with social distancing, is you don't need to spend a huge amount on a microphone. One thing I would definitely do is use Zoom so you can see the person you're talking to. That's free for 40 minutes. And then place your iPhone. It's difficult to describe it. Maybe I can find something else. Let's pretend that this. Let's pretend that this is an iPhone. Place this in front of your iPhone on record in voice memos mode or whatever phone you've got, the built-in recorder, and put it to this position in a room with lots and lots of materials in it, so it doesn't sound too echoey. And this
Mm-hmm.
microphone they've been working on it for the last 15 years. The microphone in an iPhone is unbelievable. So if you're going to start out making a podcast, I would certainly not spend any money initially on a microphone. There are some really great ones out there at a good price. I would use this. And then you go into your audio editing, and you get both parties at both ends to do this. And then you go into
Right.
your audio editing software and take the two voice memos, slide them underneath each other, and you get a much better sound than you would ever achieve from recording straight from Zoom. And of course, it's recorded locally, so you don't get all the glitching, etc., etc. So that's the first thing I would do if you were making a podcast right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would certainly use that free software. What's it called? What's his name?
The free software.
The free software for chopping up Audacity.
Oh, okay.
Audacity is fabulous. It takes you to a very weird site to buy it, but it is legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
No, not to buy it, to download it.
Yeah.
And Audacity is all you need. Then the most important thing is to prepare your podcast, have your questions, stick to them, and don't be afraid to interrupt to keep things moving. Otherwise,
Right.
you'll end up having a conversation that lasts an hour. I don't know how long our conversation's been, but I love the sound of my own voice.
It's coming to an hour. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I really don't. I don't mind exceeding the hour.
But I would definitely think with a little bit of a radio head on.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a lovely informality about podcasts which allows people to drill down deep and have deep and meaningful conversations. But please move on. So,
Mm-hmm.
and this is much easier achieved when you can see somebody sitting right opposite you. And that's the sad thing about communication over these wonderful forms. It does, even through Zoom, compromise the natural flow of communication and your ability to naturally interrupt. So, and you can see that on TV all over the place with all the delays, etc., etc. So, yeah, I would definitely do that. So keep it tight. Think with a little bit of a commercial head on, and no, classic beginning, middle, and an end. Take it on in a direction, and then at the end, nicely process it. Make sure you've recorded it in a room that's not too echoey, like this one, and add a little bit of compression. Make sure both
Mm-hmm.
microphones are roughly the same level, and then stick a nice intro at the beginning, and you're away. Of course, the content is the king. This is the democratization again of broadcasting like this. It doesn't matter if it's imperfect, because if somebody cares about the subject, they'll keep listening. But if you want to make it sound sexy and increase the chance
Mm-hmm.
of holding the audience, I see we've dropped from 21 to 17, so I'm a fine one to talk. Yeah, keep your answers brief.
Keep going.
Yeah,
Keep your answers brief. That's a good tip. It's a good tip, Dave.
Right.
Okay. So I've seen that you are able to make sounds with your voice. And I don't know if I have the video on here that I want to show you, but I watched it somewhere on YouTube where you were doing
Thanks,
voices
Cynthia.
with your you were doing voices with your you were doing sounds with your voice. Gosh, what am I saying?
I think I might have.
Yeah.
Was I doing a speech? Was it at a lectern?
Yeah, you were doing like was it like a lecture or was it like a TED
Yeah.
kind of thing? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah. So how are you able to do that? Like, does it come with experience? Is it like in Bonn or something?
Yeah, no, it's really bad quality beatboxing. I was taking the mickey out of how you. Well, actually, it's not that ridiculous, because if you have some audio editing skill, you can make any sound that you can make with your own mouth. You can muck around with it and distress it and F it up, for want of a better phrase, to add all sorts of character to it. And this was a speech on audio imaging at radio stations, and I was saying, even if you can't afford one of those sound effects packages, there are ways round it. And so, yeah, but yeah, my
Like
beatboxing
beatboxing.
isn't very good. In fact, I have been known to do it to myself on an escalator. Didn't even realize I was doing it. And the person in front of me thought I was spitting on their neck. It didn't go down too badly.
Oh my word, Dave. Thank you so much for having this fantastic conversation with me. I really do appreciate. I'd love for you to stick on here for an extra few minutes so we
I
can
don't
take
mind. I don't mind
questions.
hanging around at all. Yeah, my girlfriend
Great.
had dinner early, and I will pick up something from the petrol station on the way home.
Oh my word. How's the baby?
Oh yes, oh yeah, oh yes. Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not my baby. Well, I need to find out.